Now let us move to lines 9 to 12, which form the third quatrain of Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. These lines are extremely important because they contain the turning point of the poem, often called the Volta. Until this point, the poet has been describing the imperfections of summer and the temporary nature of beauty in the natural world. However, in this quatrain, the poet shifts from criticism of nature to praise of the beloved's eternal beauty. The first line of this section begins with the word, but, which clearly signals this change in direction. Shakespeare writes, "But thy eternal summer shall not fade." Earlier in the poem, summer was shown to be imperfect and short-lived. Here, however, the poet introduces the idea of eternal summer. This phrase does not refer to the actual season but acts as a metaphor for the beloved's beauty. Shakespeare claims that the beloved's beauty will never fade or disappear, unlike the natural summer that eventually ends. The word, eternal, suggests permanence and immortality. The next line continues this idea, "Nor lose possession of that fair thou street." In this line, the word, fair, means beauty, and osit means possess, or own. Shakespeare is saying that the beloved will never lose the beauty that they possess. In the natural world, beauty gradually declines with age and time. However, the poet insists that the beloved's beauty will remain constant and will never diminish. The third line in this section reads, "Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade." Here Shakespeare personifies death, presenting it as if it were a proud or boastful being. Normally, death eventually claims all living things, and no one can escape it. But Shakespeare boldly declares that death will not be able to boast about capturing the beloved. The phrase, "wanderest in his shade," suggests entering the realm of death or the darkness of the grave. According to the poet, the beloved will escape this fate in a unique way. The reason for this extraordinary immortality is explained in the final line of this quatrain, "When in eternal lines to time thou grow, street." The phrase, eternal lines, refers to the lines of poetry in this very sonnet. Shakespeare is suggesting that the beloved will continue to live through the poem itself. As long as the poem exists and is read by future generations, the beauty of the beloved will remain alive in human memory. In this way, the beloved becomes immortal through art and language. This third quatrain therefore introduces one of the most important ideas in Renaissance poetry, the power of poetry to overcome time and death. Shakespeare argues that although physical beauty may fade in the real world, poetry has the power to preserve beauty forever. Now let us examine the final two lines of Sonnet 18, which form the rhyming couplet, written by William Shakespeare. In a Shakespearean sonnet, the final couplet usually provides a strong conclusion or final statement that summarizes the main idea of the poem. The first line of the couplet reads, "So long as men can breathe or eyes can see." In this line, Shakespeare refers to the basic signs of human existence, breathing and seeing. Breathing represents life itself, while seeing represents the ability to read and experience the world. By using these two simple human actions, Shakespeare suggests the entire future of humanity. In other words, as long as human beings continue to live and read, the poem will remain meaningful. The final line says, "So long lives this, and this gives life to thee." The word, "this," in the line refers to the poem itself. Shakespeare confidently declares that the poem will continue to live for as long as humanity exists. But more importantly, the poem does something powerful. It gives life to the beloved. Even though human beings eventually die, the beloved described in the poem will continue to exist through the written words of the poet. This couplet expresses one of the central ideas of Renaissance literature, which is the belief that poetry can defeat time and death. Physical beauty may fade, and human life may end, but artistic creation has the power to preserve beauty forever. Through this confident declaration, Shakespeare celebrates not only the beauty of the beloved, but also the immortal power of poetry itself. Thus, the final couplet completes the argument of the poem. Nature fades, human life ends, but poetry can make beauty eternal. Now let us understand the major themes in Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare, which make this poem deeply meaningful and powerful. The first and most important theme is immortality through poetry. Shakespeare strongly believes that poetry has the power to preserve beauty forever. Even though human life is temporary, art can defeat time and death by keeping memories alive. The second theme is beauty. The poem clearly shows that natural beauty, like summer, fades over time, but the beauty of the beloved is presented as eternal and unchanging because it is captured in poetry. The third theme is time. Shakespeare shows that time destroys everything in the natural world. However, he also argues that poetry has the unique ability to resist time and overcome its effects. Finally, the poem expresses the theme of love. It is a poem of admiration and deep affection, where the poet praises the beloved and desires to make that beauty live forever. Together, these themes make Sonnet 18 a powerful reflection on beauty, love, time, and the everlasting power of art. Now let us examine the important poetic devices used in Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare, which make the poem rich, musical, and meaningful. The poem begins with a rhetorical question, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" where the poet introduces the comparison without expecting an answer. This also acts as an implied simile, comparing the beloved to summer to highlight beauty and pleasantness. Shakespeare uses powerful metaphor in the phrase, "the eye of heaven," referring to the sun, emphasizing its brightness. He also uses personification, as seen in "Nor shall death brag," where death is given human qualities, and in "Summer's lease," where summer is treated like something temporary with a fixed duration. The poem is rich in imagery, especially visual imagery like "Darling buds of May," which creates a vivid picture of delicate flowers shaken by wind. Along with this, nature imagery such as summer, sun, and flowers is used to represent beauty and time. Shakespeare also makes use of symbolism. Summer symbolizes youth and beauty, eternal lines represent poetry, and death's shade symbolizes mortality. The line, "Thy eternal summer shall not fade," is an example of hyperbole, where the poet exaggerates to show everlasting beauty. Sound devices are also important. Alliteration appears in phrases like "darling buds" and "long lives," creating musical effect. Repetition and anaphora in so long," emphasize the idea of eternity. There is strong use of contrast and antithesis, especially between temporary summer and eternal beauty. Enjambment is used between lines to maintain flow, and assonance adds musical quality through repeated vowel sounds. The poem ends with a rhyming couplet, which gives a powerful conclusion. The Volta, or turning point, occurs at line 9, where the focus shifts from nature's flaws to eternal beauty. Finally, the entire poem is written in iambic pentameter, giving it a smooth and rhythmic structure. All these poetic devices together enhance the central idea that poetry has the power to make beauty immortal. Now let us focus on two important literary concepts used in Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. The first is iambic pentameter, which is the rhythmic pattern of the poem. Each line contains 10 syllables, arranged in a pattern of unstressed followed by stressed syllables. For example, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" follows this pattern, creating a smooth and musical flow that is typical of Shakespeare's poetry. The second concept is the Volta, or the turning point in the poem. In Sonnet 18, the Volta occurs in line 9, beginning with the word, "but." At this point, the poem shifts from describing the imperfections of nature to emphasizing the eternal beauty of the beloved. This shift is crucial because it introduces the main argument that poetry can make beauty immortal. Now let us explore the deeper or hidden meanings in Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare, which go beyond the surface level of a simple love poem. One important interpretation is the idea of art versus nature. In the poem, Shakespeare shows that nature is temporary and imperfect. Summer fades, beauty declines, and everything in the natural world is affected by time. In contrast, art, especially poetry, is presented as eternal. Through poetry, beauty can be preserved forever, making art more powerful than nature. Another deeper idea is the human desire for immortality. Human beings naturally fear death and the loss of beauty and identity. In this poem, Shakespeare suggests that although physical life ends, poetry can provide a form of immortality. By writing about the beloved, the poet ensures that the beloved will continue to live in the minds of readers across generations. Finally, the poem reflects the ideas of Renaissance humanism, a major intellectual movement during Shakespeare's time. Humanism emphasized human potential, creativity, and achievement. In Sonnet 18, Shakespeare shows confidence in human artistic ability, suggesting that human creation, like poetry, can overcome time and even challenge death itself. Thus, the poem is not just about love, but also about the power of art, the fear of mortality, and the greatness of human creativity. Now let us look at some important critical views on Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare, which help us understand its deeper significance. The critic Samuel Johnson praised Shakespeare for his ability to represent universal human emotions. In this poem, the feelings of love, admiration, and the desire to preserve beauty are expressed in a way that remains meaningful across all time periods. The modern critic Cleanth Brooks emphasized that the poem shows the power of language to immortalize beauty. According to him, the poem itself becomes a lasting medium that preserves the beloved forever. Similarly, Helen Vendler highlights Shakespeare's strong confidence in poetic immortality. She believes that the poem reflects Shakespeare's belief that poetry can overcome time and give eternal life to beauty. Together, these critics agree that Sonnet 18 is not just a love poem, but a powerful statement about the lasting power of poetry. Now let us look at some important quotations from Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. The poem begins with the famous line, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" which introduces the central comparison. Another important line, "Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May," highlights the imperfections of nature. The line, "Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade," shows the poet's belief that death cannot claim the beloved. Finally, the concluding line, "So long lives this, and this gives life to thee," clearly expresses the main idea that poetry grants immortality to beauty. Now let us quickly revise some important exam-oriented points from Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare, which are very useful for competitive exams. First, remember the important facts. The poem was written around the 1590s and later published in 1609 as part of Shakespeare's sonnet collection. It belongs to the Fair Youth Sonnets, where the poet addresses a young man and celebrates his beauty. Next, focus on the key ideas. One major idea is the contrast between beauty and time, where time destroys natural beauty. Another important idea is the immortality of poetry, which shows that poetry can preserve beauty forever. Finally, the poem is also a praise of the beloved, expressing admiration and the desire to make that beauty eternal. These points are very important for quick revision and frequently asked in exams. Now let us quickly revise the key points of Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote a total of 154 sonnets, and Sonnet 18 is one of the most famous among them. The poem follows the typical Shakespearean structure of 3 quatrains and a final couplet, with the rhyme scheme AB, CD, EF, GG. An important feature to remember is the Volta, or turning point, which occurs in line 9, where the poem shifts from the imperfections of nature to the eternal beauty of the beloved. The central theme of the poem is that poetry has the power to immortalize beauty, making it live forever beyond time and death. Thank you for watching this detailed explanation of Sonnet 18 by William Shakespeare. If you found this lesson helpful, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends who are preparing for exams. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember, poetry never dies. Watch next video on your screen now.